This is the Ask a Photographer podcast, answering your photography-related questions about general photography, workflow, editing, business, and marketing. To submit a question, go to beblino.com/ask. Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. My name is Mike, and I'm from beblino.com. And today's question comes from Joy. And Joy's asking about wedding photography and bridezillas, and she says, I've been researching wedding photography for a while now. I've second shot with friends who have said I have the personality for wedding photography. It would be a dream of mine if I could shoot weddings, even if it was part-time. One thing that is stopping me, though, is the fear of having to deal with a bridezilla. How do you deal with bridezillas in your business? Hey Joy, thanks for your question. And how do I deal with bridezillas in my business? I run the opposite direction. No, seriously, it's one of those things that sometimes can't be avoided. And, you know, when your question came in, I actually had a bit of a chuckle because I was actually in the same position as you a few years back, about 5 years ago. I had this mindset that every single person I was going to meet was going to be difficult, partly due to the photographers I was speaking to and asking them had they had done any wedding photography and what did they think of it. And the first thing they came up was, oh yeah, it was really difficult dealing with the bride. They wanted everything. And, you know, I guess reality TV doesn't help either. You know, it makes the regular wedding drama, and, you know, it's just full of drama. Everything's going to go wrong. And yes, stuff does happen. You know, I haven't been in a position where I've seen a bride go ballistic at the most smallest thing because, you know, I don't know, the flowers were rearranged or incorrectly, or the wrong one, or they're too small, or I don't know. I mean, you know, I just haven't really come across anybody that full on. And a bridezilla basically is someone it's basically someone whose behaviours seem to be really demanding and unreasonable when they're planning their wedding. So I think a lot of the times you're not really going to get to see the stress of what goes into the bride and groom planning their wedding. And let's be honest, right? They're spending a lot of money for one day, and, you know, I think they should be allowed to have things. Well, they should have things perfect. If they order for something, they should get it. And I think that out of all the vendors, the wedding photographer is one of the most important. I know we always say that about ourselves, but, you know, our photos or their photos are going to be with them for the rest of their lives. And that's why it's important to make albums for them and not just give them digital files or even prints, you know, wall prints, you know. But that aside, I think get the negativity out of your head and just do it. Do what you believe is right for you, because wedding photography as a genre is really, really special. You know, you're witnessing something that is a once in a lifetime experience for two people, and you've been asked to photograph that, and that's pretty special. And a lot of people that are actually witnessing it along with you, some of them haven't even been to weddings before, so it's also a first time for them too, believe it or not. So don't worry about the negativity of the whole thing, and just do what you feel is right for yourself and makes you happy. Now, you can't always tell if someone's going to be difficult, but there are some things you can have in place that will make your job a little bit easier. And if something does come up, you'll be protecting yourself. So the first thing would be when you're doing the client meetings. And you've got to be honest with them. You can't promise them the world if you can only promise half of what you can offer them. For instance, if they're wanting photos that are highly posed and they want the end results of the photos to be like fine art pieces that are perfectly edited and you know, they're ready as if they're going to be placed onto a wall in a beautiful big frame. Well, if you don't provide that, or if your wedding photography style is photojournalistic and it's not highly posed and you know, it's completely opposite, you got to be honest with them. Tell them that you're not the right photographer with them, and and ask them to find someone else, or at least assist them to find someone else if you've got friends in the industry that meets their criteria. Now, the other thing is having a contract that is very, very sound and it protects you as well as them. And having it done by a professional is paramount. You've got to do that. Don't skimp on it. I know that when you're starting out, you don't want to be spending money in places like this, but you have to. You've got to cover your butt. And, there's clauses in there that you could put that will help you get the photos that you need, but also if you don't get the photos. And what I mean by that is I have a clause in my contract that says that I can't be held responsible if the owner of the establishment or licensee of the establishment is not allowing me to perform my duties as a photographer. And what I mean by that is if their lighting is really, really low and dim, and I've asked them to raise the lights a little bit because my cameras are finding it hard to focus, and they won't, and then I just have to make do. I'll get the photos that I can, and if I'm not held liable for any that I can't. And other things like, malfunction. We all look after our equipment, and we all should be. But, having clauses like that things are out of your control. But once again, as a professional, you need to have backup equipment. Other things, I've actually been asked to go to the back of the church because the parish, the priest, has had experiences where during the vows, photographers like to get really, really close and wreck the mood, as she put it. And I agreed with that, and that's fine, but I had the necessary equipment, had the experience to be able to take photos within that means. I let the groom know before we started that's what the priest's wishes were, and he said, yep, not a problem. So you've got to let people know on the day, and also you have these clauses in your contract to cover your butt as well. Now, make sure that there is a timeline filled out too, because the timelines are very, very important. It lets you know where you should be, and also if the timeline becomes too compact and to a point where you can't do your job, you've got to let them know, and they've got to understand that with the limited time, that you can only perform so much. I've had cases where you would normally take 1 hour to do a particular thing, and it may be the bridal portraits, or it could be the getting ready stage, but of course they want that done in like half an hour or even 15 minutes. You've got to make do, and you've got to prepare yourself for that, knowing the location, and not saying, hey, I can't do it, but giving them choices. I've had experiences where the driving to a location took longer than the actual photos. It's just how it was. It's what the bride wanted. Tried to give it to her, but the photos we only got so much. But thinking a little bit out of the square, what I did do was, as we walk into the location, as we got out of the limousine, I was taking photos and candid photos of them and stopped them along the way by the time we got to the landmark that she wanted to be photographed in, and then took photos, and then we walked back and took further photos, and of course I took the group photos and individual photos, but only was given 15-20 minutes, but it took us 35 minutes to get there and back. So anyway, but that's just how it is. Now, the other thing is to offer advice as a professional and someone that's experienced it, because don't forget, people are getting married for the first time, majority of the time, and they will ask you for a solution to something, and that's fine. You need to give them the pros and cons so they can make the choice. And it's very important that if you are saying these things over the phone, make sure it's in email. Once again, covering your own butt, but also giving them a little nudges. Hey, this is what we spoke about, but also for you too. You may speak to a lot of people. It's definitely many, many months in between what's going on. So, having that in writing is not such a bad thing. Now, if things do go wrong, and they will, stuff happens in business, right? I'm not saying the end of the world will happen, but, there are small things that some people may find, how should we say, really, really bad for them, but for you it could be a regular occurrence, or it could actually just be something quite small that's easily fixed. Now, what I recommend is if someone's writing you an email and they're saying, oh, I don't like any of the photos, or I don't like this, or don't like that, or for whatever reason, or something's gone astray, don't respond straight away. Read it several times, then leave that email, walk away from it, think about what's going on, think about from their point of view, and also, maybe even talk with a colleague if you have, or a friend, somebody that you talk to about your business, and see what they think. But most importantly, you've got to respond within 24 hours, and you've got to come back to them with some sort of solution and give them choices. And sometimes you do need to, I guess, lose a little bit of money to make them happy. So if something was damaged in such a way where the printers is not going to pay for it because they shipped it to you and it was fine, but it was when you were, taking it somewhere or shipping it to them, it got damaged, well, then someone's going to have to eventually pay for it, and upfront costs may have to be just you. It could also be something that you took too long to get something done, or you forgot something, and, giving them something for free. It could be a print, or it could be a few extra pages in an album, just to keep them happy. Because even though we like reviews and people to refer us, I find that people talk negatively more about people than positively. If you've had a bad experience, you're going to be very, very willing to tell people about that negative experience. But most of the time, people don't really want to praise people. I don't know why, it's just how it is. If you can make an unhappy customer very, very happy, then definitely you're winning. You're also learning something from that experience, and who knows, they could be a raving fan and tell all their friends. So there you go, Joy. I hope those few things that you can think about when you start your photography, when you start your wedding photography business, and I will keep you accountable. So I'd like you to send me a link to your website, and it'd be great to see your progress. So if you have a question that you'd like featured on the show, go to biblino.com/ask to submit your question. I'd love to hear what you think of the show by going to iTunes or Stitcher and giving me a review and a rating. And don't forget to subscribe so you get notifications of new episodes. Thanks for listening. Until next time, get out and take more photos. Oh, look, it's a cat in front of a sunset.